Hey guys, Bobby Hughes here with Point Firearms, and today we're going to be doing something pretty cool, another handgun video. I've just posted the 4 or 5 videos on the Glock, and I think they're going to do pretty good. If you have a Glock and you're interested in learning about a Glock, maybe you're new to Glocks, check those videos out. But in this video, we're going to be talking about Springfields. Alright, another handgun. Probably Glock's closest competition now with all the different types of the Springfield XD and XDMs and XDS and all that stuff out. And kind of what brought it up was I've had some comments and some questions about the gun that's usually on my side whenever I'm doing videos. And my concealed carry is actually a Springfield XD 40 Smith & Wesson. I know it's not a 45, but it's just my caliber of choice for concealed carry and my gun of choice for concealed carry. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is going over the complete detailed disassembly and reassembly of the Springfield XD. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, and you know, I've made mention in the Glock videos that I'm not historically a Glock fan. I've always just been a Springfield fan, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you have a Glock and you have a Springfield and you've never detail stripped either one of them, start with the Glock. Learn how to detail strip guns before you move into a Springfield. Alright? These things are a lot more complicated and a lot more tedious when you're detail disassembling them than the Glock. Alright? But on a lighter note with them, you shouldn't ever have to detail strip this one unless you really do a lot of hardcore shooting, or you shoot a lot of cast bullets, straight lead cast bullets. Alright, so this one, it's been a long time since it's been stripped down, so I figure I'll strip it down for you guys and show you exactly how to do that. So let's get started. Alright guys, so I'm going to try to do the best I can with this. I think if you're a Springfield lover, this video is probably going to be a pretty good help, because I've done some searching on YouTube and I only found a couple of decent videos for the XD disassembly and reassembly. Now keep in mind the XDM is different than the XDs, but the 9mm 40 and 45 in the XD is going to be about the same regardless. Okay, so first thing we want to do, just like with anything, especially this is my concealed carry, so I do have a loaded magazine. I use hollow points. These are the Hornady XTP hollow points. Good stuff. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and unload the magazine, because part of disassembly, complete disassembly on a gun is going to be magazine maintenance. Alright, magazines, don't ever neglect your magazine. Alright, the Springfield XD mags are super easy to disassemble. Alright, unload your mag, and then right here in the bottom of the magazine there's a little pin right there. You're just going to push that in and slide the base of your magazine forward, and watch, because the spring will pop loose on you. You have your little plastic cover, and then your spring, and then your riser. Alright, so pretty easy setup on that, but those need to be cleaned as well. So got that disassembled. I'll give that a good cleaning while I got it apart. It's been a little while since I've done that. Alright, so we'll make sure that the handgun is clear, and it is. Alright, now what we want to do is the easiest way to disassemble this, and this is a perk over the Glock that I really like, is the takedown. Alright, you know, on the Glock you've got the 2 little divots there that you have to pull down on. This one, we're just going to pull it back to the rear and push our takedown lever up, just like that. And then we're going to ride our slide forward, squeeze the trigger, and then pull the slide right off the front of the grip. Alright, we're going to set that aside. We're going to start with this first. Alright guys, so once you've got your slide off, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to take off our takedown lever. Alright, so in order to take off your takedown lever, you're just going to pull the takedown lever backwards away from the normal way that you would do it. Alright, and then when you pull it back like that, it's just going to kind of start to work its way loose. Alright, so you're just going to work it loose. You're going to hear that pop, and what that pop is it's actually a spring inside of there. And I'll show you in a second. So you're just going to spin it back towards you and you'll feel the cutout. Alright, so now what we want to do is just continue to spin it. And I didn't mean to pull it out that quick, but just spin it until it pulls out. Alright, and so we'll set that aside. That's our takedown lever. Alright, the next thing is there's two pins here on the side that we're going to take off. There's no specific order that you need to take these out, so we're just going to go ahead and take them both out. Now, unlike the Glock, the pins on these things can be pretty much a pain in the butt to get out. I'm going to use my Glock tool just because I've got it. It's a little bit easier, and I'm going to try to push these out without using a hammer, but I doubt I'm going to be able to. Sometimes they're a pain in the butt, so be prepared to use a little bit of help from a friend. Alright, so we're going to use, I'm just using a little tack hammer here. It doesn't take a lot, we're just going to tap it. Alright, and I'm not going to tap them all the way out, I'm just going to tap them loose. Alright, and then that way I can go around here and use my Glock tool and push it the rest of the way out. Alright, and these pins are identical, so you don't have to worry about mixing those up. Alright, now that's not the same for the whole gun, but just for this. Alright, so we've got those pins out now. Our next thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and remove our locking block, which is just going to pull right out. Alright, you're going to notice that when you pull that locking block out, there's this little wire spring here. That's what your takedown bar was actually catching on, because when it's in here, this bar sticks up in front of that hole right there. So that's what your takedown lever was actually catching on when you're trying to pull it apart. So just set those aside. Alright, now you can go ahead and remove your slide release. It just pulls right out, right off of there. Alright, and we can go ahead and remove our trigger group. Alright, so you just pull the trigger back a little bit and then push it up through the hole, and then it's going to pull right out just like that. Alright, so our next step is to go ahead and take apart our ejector and sear assembly, this is a sear spring ejector. Let me zoom in here so you guys can see a little bit better. I'll show you in detail. Get a good look at how this thing is in here before you start taking it apart. Okay, so this is your ejector right here. This is your sear spring down here. This is your sear, and this is your firing pin safety. Okay, so that's the different components right in there. All right, and there's actually two little pins. There's this pin right here, which does not push all the way through. It's just going to push out of the ejector side. So in order to get that loose, or to get that out, what you can do is just take a small pair of needle nose pliers and lock it on and just push it to the side, alright, until you can get something behind there. And when you do this, you're going to see that your ejector spring is actually, or your sear spring is actually going to pop loose. See it right there, it just popped loose. So that's okay, don't worry about that, and then we'll go ahead and pull that pin the rest of the way out. It's just a little bitty pin. Alright, now our next pin is a pin that runs all the way through, and it's this little pin right here. Alright, so what we're going to do is, it doesn't matter really what side you push it out from, but run your punch all the way through, just like that. You're going to push your pin out. Once you get your pin out, then you'll start pulling your punch back through, and then when you get it back through, go ahead and pull your ejector off. Alright, and then we're going to go ahead and pull punch the rest of the way through, you see that our grip safety here popped out. It's not out, but it popped back. And we're going to go ahead and pull this whole assembly out here. And that's your sear, your sear spring, right, and your firing pin safety. So we'll go ahead and set those aside. Alright, the last thing on the grip that we're going to take apart, you can take your ejector off here if you want to. There's a pin right there for that. We're not going to take this out, we're just going to leave it in. But we will take this off so I can show you what a pain in the butt it is to put back together. So you've got one pin there, that's your pin for your grip safety. We'll just go ahead and push that through. We'll try to push it through without a hammer. And we're going to have to use the hammer. Just to get it started probably, and then we'll be able to, maybe not. Alright, once again, push your punch all the way through. Leave it in. There's your pin. Alright, now this pin is longer than your sear pin that we just pulled out of there. So they're the same size, but different lengths. Alright, now we'll go ahead and pull our punch out. And then we'll pull our safety, grip safety, right up to the top there. Alright, now there's a little spring with this, so you can pull those apart, and I'll show you how to put those back together here in a little bit. Alright guys, now that's pretty much disassembled. Like I said, you can take the magazine release, the mag release assembly out, because there's a few components inside of there. There's a spring and the button and all that stuff. We're not going to pull it out just because you can use a solvent, squirt down in there and clean that out. No reason to pull that out. The only time you'd want to pull that out, you're just going to put extended mag release. I use this for my concealed carry, so I'm not going to put extended mag release on that because I don't want to be able to, I don't want it to bump in my holster and drop my mag. So just food for thought there. If you're going to conceal carry, don't recommend the mag release, the extended mag release. Alright, so that's disassembled. So we'll go ahead and get it cleaned up, and then I'll show you the reassembly on it. Alright guys, so now that we're done with the lower, we're going to go ahead and do the upper, or the slide section. Alright, the disassembly of it. This is going to be the complete disassembly for any change outs that you may need to make or anything like that. So this should get you a how-to on how to do any of that. Alright, now I've seen some comments on some other videos about sights for the Springfield XD, and it's basically just like any other sights on any other gun. The only difference between this and a Glock is on the front sight post you have a dovetail slide on the XD, and on the Glock you have a screw in, it's just a hole. But you're going to set this one the same way that you would set this one. You just have to get them lined up. Alright, so anyway, let's go ahead and disassemble. First thing we're going to do is remove the guide rod and spring assembly here. And so all we're going to do is just pull it right out, just like that. Alright, and then we are going to go ahead and remove the barrel. Man, that thing is dirty. Alright, so now we're down to your basic field strip. Alright, so our first step in the disassembly is we need to remove our rear locking plate back here. Okay? This one's kind of tricky. What you need to do is find a punch that is about the same size as the hole of the hole on the back here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. And you can see there's a little hole in the center, and then there's this outer ring, and then there's the metal plate. Alright, we're going to depress the whole ring here that's inside of this plate. So what we do is just depress that ring, and then slide the punch forward. Sorry I couldn't get you in that whole thing, but you're going to press the ring and then slide the punch forward, and and that's going to allow you to push this locking plate off. Now when you push it off, be careful because that is spring loaded and it's going to try to come out there. There's your locking plate. You can see this is protruding now. So go ahead and set that aside. You can pull your detent off of here, and that's just your bushing. Alright, then you can pull your firing pin or striker spring off. And then you're going to notice that you have like a plunger assembly here. Alright, so pull that off. And now your actual firing pin, you're going to notice it's not going to pull out. Alright, see that hole right there? There's a pin in that. And so what we need to do is knock that pin out. Okay? So I'm going to use a couple of blocks. I don't want to mess up my sights, so I got to be easy on where I position my blocks. Alright, now let me go ahead and zoom out here a little bit. And I'm going to find, let's see if my Glock tool will work. Looks like my Glock tool fits perfectly. So I'm just going to tap on that. And knock the pin right out of the bottom. There's our pin for that. It's a spreaded pin. See it there. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and pull our Glock tool or our punch out. Now our firing pin or our striker will pull right out. There's your firing pin striker. Alright, and now there's going to be a spring in here as well. May have to reach in and grab it. There we go. There's our spring. So it's a little short, fat spring. Alright guys, so we've got our firing pin out now, our striker assembly. So what we want to do now is remove our firing pin safety right here. Okay, our firing pin safety is spring loaded, just like any other. And then right here in front of it, there's this round thing right here with some spring steel that comes out. That's your extractor. Alright, your extractor is held in with just tension. And what's going to happen is over the time and use of carbon buildup in there, it's not going to want to come out very easily. So what I've done is I've put some Cruel on there, some penetrating oil, and I'm going to let that soak on it while I'm pulling this firing pin safety or the striker safety out right here. Alright, so to do that, back here we have a little pin right here in the corner. And there's a little slit in that pin. So what you want to do is just pull up on that pin with a small screwdriver or flat blade. Now I recommend keep your hand on the striker safety there, because when we pull this pin up, that's spring loaded, it's going to come loose. So we're going to pull this pin out just like that, and I can feel the pressure on the striker safety. So go ahead and lay it back down here now. And we'll just get in here and lift that right out of there. So there's that. And then we have a little spring in here we have to get out too. And there's the spring. Alright, now we can go ahead and start trying to get our extractor out. Now this thing, like I said, it can be a pain in the butt to get out after it's been setting for a while. So I've got that penetrating oil in there, and what we're going to do to try to help tap it loose a little bit is I'm going to take a punch on the back side here, and I'm just going to give it a slight little tap just to help tap it loose a little bit. Give it a little tap-a-roo. So I'll lay it over here and then just give it a little tap. Here it comes. Alright, and there's our extractor. Alright, now there's one other thing you can take off if you want to, and that's your indicator up here. It's spring loaded. Alright, I'm not going to take it off just because I'm going to just clean around it. I'm not going to pull it off, but if you want to pull that off, you take a punch, send a punch right down that hole right there, all the way through, and that'll come out. It's two pieces. It's the actual indicator lever and then a spring, alright, inside of there. So other than that, our slide now is completely disassembled and ready for cleaning. Alright, so let me go get it cleaned up, and I'll come back and show you how to put it all back together. Alright guys, so all of our parts are clean now, and at this point I want to show you just kind of, this is the stuff I just cleaned from the upper, and this is the lower stuff. I just want to show you why I think Glock outweighs Springfield right now at this point in my life. And it's simply because of the 387 parts that are laying in front of me that have to go back into this gun. So thumbs up for Glock on that one, but as far as function, reliability, and stock stuff that comes on a Glock, stock control, trigger squeeze, all that stuff that comes on a Glock compared to an XD, I have to say that I like the XD better for that. But here comes a joke for you. Why is Springfield Armory called Springfield? And you might think, and 99.9% of you guys are going to say, that's because they're based out of Springfield, Massachusetts, but it's not. It's because they can't build a gun without 5 bazillion springs in it. Anyway, alright guys, so let's get back to reassembling our gun. Alright, so we're going to reassemble the lower. Alright, we're going to put everything back together in this. Now bear with me guys, I'm going to try to get you the best camera angles I can on this. But because of all the parts, it may prevent me from having perfect camera angles for you on a lot of this stuff. Alright, so like I said, bear with me. I'll do the best I can at making sure that I get you the best picture possible. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to start back here on the back of the gun. Alright, back here where our sear and our trigger safety and all that jazz is. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to set some of this crap out of the way here and just get the stuff that we need to put this back together. Let's see, I need that, and not that, and not that. This, and not that one. This one, and I think. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and start with our grip safety and our grip safety spring. Our grip safety spring is the little spring that has the little notch on it like that. All right. Now, this is probably the most tedious part of putting the thing back together. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my grip safety, I'm going to slide it right down in the gun just like this. Alright, and I'm going to take my punch and I'm going to run it through, line the holes up just like that. Alright, so now it's holding itself in with the punch. And what I got to do is I'm going to pull the punch back out to where my punch holds the grip safety in there, and I'm going to keep my finger under it. Alright, and then we're going to take our spring. Now both of the tips of the spring have to be on the back side. The crooked part is actually going to set up against the back of the frame so that it will that's what it springs off of. So we just kind of have to use a little bit of finesse and get it down in here. But not too far. Alright, and then once you get it down in there, then you're going to try to run your punch in just a little bit further. Alright, till your punch runs through. Now your punch is all the way through. Alright, now if we push on this, you can see that it's actually, see if I can get it to focus here for you. Alright, there we go. See how the back of that spring right there is actually setting on there, and then it's the other part of it's setting right there, so that when we push on it, it's springing off of there. Alright, so I got my punch through there. Now I need to get my pin through too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my pin from the opposite side, and I'm going to use my pin to push my punch out, so that way we stay in line. Keeps everything nice and tight and in line. You may have to use a little bit of, tappage there just to help it out. Alright, we're most of the way through there now. So I'll just use my Glock tool, push that the rest of the way, and then we're going to just seat this about halfway in the middle. Go a little bit further with it. There we go. Now, first thing you want to check is you want to make sure that, two things here. You want to make sure that your safety is actually setting in the center of that rod, and you want to look at your spring down here, and in that pin there was a notch. So when you center that pin in this hole, that notch should be cut out for the spring, the front side of that spring to set in. In our case it is. And I would show you, but there's no way that's going to focus on that little bitty thing. But your spring, the front side of your spring that actually pushes on the, puts tension on the grip itself, on the grip safety, that should be in the notch of that pin. Alright, so that's the hardest part right there. That's done. So let's move on to putting our sear, our ejector, and our trigger safety back in. Okay, and the sear spring and the pins, all that good stuff. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do before I put this thing together is we're going to use a little bit of lubrication. I'm going to use my graphite stuff, not my... And we're going to take our sear and our trigger safety. Alright, I'm going to try to turn it around here so you can see it. Alright, so this is the right side of the sear. It faces back just like this toward the back of the gun. Just like that. Alright, so it sits right back in there like that. So this is the right side, and this is our trigger safety here. And you'll see the notches that are cut out in it. Alright, so what we need to do is this little tip sticks out on the side of the trigger safety is going to face toward the gun, toward the side of the gun. Okay, and you see how these just kind of sit right there like that and line up? That's how they're going to go. So to help hold that and to give it a little bit of lubrication, we're going to put just a dab of grease there, and then we're going to set our trigger safety on top just like that, and that will help kind of hold those together and also give it a little bit of lubrication. Alright, so I'll set those down now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start my pin for that. Just start it just to where there's a little tip sticking out there, just a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to take that sear and that trigger safety, and I'm going to take it top of the sear here, little flat side facing back. You need to depress your grip safety, and you have to come down inside the magazine well a little bit. Ooh. Sometimes the grease will backfire on you. Sometimes it'll help it stick together. Sometimes it doesn't. So we need to come back in just like this, and then kind of maneuver it back here, and then we're going to start to push our pin in, bring our sear back, depress our safety, and just got to get it lined up, and we've got that started there. Alright, so see, my pin's not all the way in, it's just barely protruding there. Alright, and we don't even want it to protrude that much, because we got to get the spring in there now. Thanks, Springfield. So I'm going to use my punch and just push that back flush. Alright, and then I'm going to take my spring. Now, we don't have to put any tension on this spring right now, so that's a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my spring in, and then I'm going to push my pin through a little bit more. Alright, so now my spring will set there. And then I'm going to take my ejector, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to put just a little dab of lube on it, a little dab of grease. And then all you're going to do is just set your, you see how it's got the little ridge on it there? Get it to focus. It's got a little ridge. That ridge sets on the outside of the gun. So you're going to turn it, come right down in here like this. Just wedge it down in there. And then you just got to get the pin to line up and push the rest of the way in. Alright, and there's no click stop on that pin, so you just got to center it up best you can. Now we got one last little pin, and it starts on the opposite side, on the left-hand side of the gun. So we're going to start that pin, and now our sear has a little hole in it, or I'm sorry, our ejector has a little hole in it that we have to line up now. So you're just going to put a little bit of pressure on your pin until you feel until you feel your ejector line up with it. Alright, and then we're going to give it a little bit more of a push through. And there's a magic spot. And don't ask me where the magic spot's at. You just have to kind of play with it until you find the magic spot. Alright, and then we're going to take a little pair of pliers, and we're going to take this spring right here, our sear spring, and we're going to push it down. And we're going to tuck it underneath that pin. Just like that. See how I've got it tucked under that pin right there? All I did was I pushed this spring down and tucked it underneath that pin. Alright, and then we can push that pin the rest of the way in. Alright, and that pin should be pretty much flush with the other side there. Just like that. Alright, so that's back together. That is the most complicated part. The grip safety, the sear, ejector, trigger safety. That's the most difficult part of this reassembly, and that's done. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and move up front here to the front of the lower frame. Alright, for that I'm going to need my locking block. I'm going to need my trigger bar, and where's my trigger? And I'm going to need my two pins, and I'm going to need my takedown, and let's see, what else do we need here? Trigger spring. There's the locking block spring, the release, and that's it. Okay, so now what we're going to do here first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our trigger assembly back together. And I didn't take this apart on the disassembly, but it's just simply the trigger just pulls right off of it. Alright, just like that. So what you want to do is look at your gun just like this. Alright, and this trigger bar fits right down underneath here like this. So this big tip right here, this spot right here, that is what actually rubs your firing pin or striker safety on the frame or on the top of the slide. Alright, so that's going to point up. Alright, we're going to take our trigger and our trigger spring, and our trigger spring is going to lay, there's a little groove right there. Our trigger spring is just going to lay in that little groove, just like that. Really easy. Alright, and then we're going to take our trigger bar and we're going to come right up here like this. And run it through the spring, through the rest, and then when we come back down, it'll catch on that spring. See how it catches right there? Alright, so we've got that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and install our trigger bar by pushing it up underneath, just like that. And then work our trigger back down in there. So now our trigger bar and trigger assembly is in. Okay. Alright, now the next step is going to be, we're going to lay our slide release down in there. Nothing special there, just laying it in. Alright, we're going to take our locking block. We're going to reinstall our locking block spring. Alright, so we've got that little hole right there. We're just going to catch the little part of that spring in that hole. Lay it right there like that. Alright, and there we're going to reinstall that. So it just takes a little finesse. There we go, just like that. Alright, so our locking block is back in. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and line up our front pin, and it shouldn't be much lining up to it. Just run it in. And then now we do have to line our trigger up and run it in. I think this one's going to be easier to put in from the other side. There we go. it's a matter of just lining everything up. And then we'll take our punch and just tap it home until we hear the click. Alright, so our lower's back together now. The only thing we have left to do is to reinstall our takedown lever. Alright, so now remember, when we pulled that thing out, we have this little wire in there. See that? That's that spring, that damn spring. Alright, so here is your lever. Now see how that lever has that cutout in it? Alright, when you go to set it in there, set that right over top of that cutout and then turn. You're gonna hold it like this and pull back to you, and you're pushing in and turning at the same time, and you're just gonna ride it forward, and you felt the click. Alright, that means we're over that spring, and now it's just a matter of getting the thing lined up. And we're just going to rotate it up and push it in just like that. So now our takedown lever is back in there. Okay, so that is the lower. So let's go ahead and disassemble and reassemble the upper now. Alright, so what I'm going to do is we're going to start with the ejector, okay, because that was the last thing we pulled out. So I'm going to take a little bit of lube and put down in there, not a whole lot. Alright, then I'm going to take my ejector and I'm just going to push it right back down into place there. Alright, you may have to use a punch just to make sure it's seated all the way. Alright, so that's in. Now what we'll do is reinstall our firing pin safety and our firing pin safety spring. Okay, so we've got our little spring, and on the bottom of the firing pin safety there's a little divot. That's for the spring. Okay, so our spring is going to set there, and then our down inside there's a little divot for the spring as well. Alright, so with this, it doesn't have the little detent in there to help hold it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my spring on the tip of my scribe here. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on it. Let's do it this way. Put a little bit of lube on the spring. Go ahead and take and set our spring right in place, right in that divot. That's what we're looking for. Now it's a matter of getting the spring off of the tip of your scribe. Alright, now we'll take our firing pin safety and we just have to get the spring lined up in that hole. So usually if you just give it a wiggle, set it down and it's close and give it a wiggle, it'll line itself up. Alright, and then we take that pin, that long pin, we're going to slide it right down the little hole here. And that's going to lock our firing pin safety in place. Okay, so that's all there is to that. So now we're moving on to the striker. Alright, so we had the front spring, the fat spring, and our striker. Alright, and it just sets right over it like that. Alright, so I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the striker. And said lube, guys, I use lube, I use grease. I use a graphite based all-weather high temperature grease. And all that really does is it keeps your gun from seizing, and it helps to reduce the carbon buildup. Alright, so we're going to slide that assembly back inside. Just like that. Alright, and now we have to reinstall our spreaded pin. And we're reinstalling that from the top. So I'm just going to set it right down in there. I'm going to use my hammer and I'm going to help tap it in. Alright, then you just want to flip it over and check, make sure that you got it lined up and that firing pin's not going to come out of there. And then we'll flip it over and use our punch. Actually, the Glock tool is the perfect size. And we'll just tap it home until you hear it bottom out, and that's as far as it'll go. Alright, so that's back in. Now we have our rear spring and bearing, alright, and then we have this little back part to the firing pin. Alright, so this we're actually going to set in the spring like this. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of grease. I'm going to put it right around the base here. All that's going to do is help keep our spring in alignment. Alright, we're going to push that, feed that down over that spring. And what I recommend doing is go ahead and have your rear slide ready to go. Alright, so once we get this seated, little pin is a pain in the rear end because it doesn't like to line up properly. There we go. Alright. Like I said, guys, bear with me. I'm trying to do the best I can with the camera angle. Alright, I'm just going to use that little screwdriver and help push that down in there. And then I'm going to start my rear slide. Push it up into place, just like that. Alright. Now we should be all in alignment. Everything should be good. And the way you want to check to make sure you're in alignment is grab the rearmost part of your striker and pull it back and make sure that that pin protrudes. That's your firing pin, your cock indicator. Alright, and that's good. Okay guys, so now what you're going to want to do is go ahead and reinstall your barrel. Just like that. And then reinstall your guide rod spring assembly, and your slide is back together. Alright, so now from this part, all you're going to do is go ahead and put your slide back on the front of your gun, run it back, alright, pull it back and lock it with the slide lock. There we're checking to make sure that our slide lock was reinstalled properly. Alright, and then we're going to flip down our lever back to normal and then release our slide lock. Our cock indicator is out, meaning the gun is cocked. Alright, we're going to drop the hammer, click, and the cock indicator is down. Alright, so now what I want you to do is go ahead and rack it again. Try it one more time. Cock indicator is out. Drop the hammer. Cock indicator disappears. Now I want you to squeeze the trigger and hold it. I want you to rack it. Now our cock indicator is out. Now I want you to slowly let off the trigger until you hear the click. Alright, that's our trigger reset right there. Now I haven't fully let off of the trigger, just till the click, and that's our reset indicator. Alright, then I'm going to squeeze the trigger again. Click. Firing pin indicator drops. And that's all there is to it. Alright, now one more check that we want to do to make sure that our sear safety and the grip safety is working. You want to cock it. Now take your hand off of the grip safety and try to pull the trigger. And it doesn't pull. So then put it back on, drop the hammer, you're good to go. So that is how you disassemble and reassemble the gun. We have one more thing to do. We're going to go ahead and put our magazine back together. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is your magazine spring is actually fatter on the bottom than it is on the top. Alright, so what you want to do is, to help line your spring up so that you know which way it goes, is you take your mag and your spring and you check the angle on it. See how that angle lines up there? That way I know that that spring is going in there the right way. Alright, so I'm going to take it out. And I'm going to set my feed ramp here back on there. Alright, and then I'm going to slide it right up through the base. Just like that. Flip it over. And now I have my base part. Alright, it's rounded on the front side, which is where that goes. You're going to use that to push your spring down into the magazine well. Alright, and then slide your base plate right on until it clicks and you're good to go. Alright, so if this is your concealed carry or home protection, you can go ahead and load your rounds up here. Now I do not recommend that you do what I'm about to do in your house. You should probably go outside because we're doing a safety check on our gun. So we'll put the magazine back in the gun. I'm going to go ahead and rack it and make sure they're round chambers. Alright, then we'll rack it again. Make sure that the round ejects. So what I'm checking here is to make sure that those rounds are ejecting and that my magazine slide lock works. Alright. So at this point in time, guys, we're all good to go. That is the detailed disassembly and reassembly of the Springfield XD. A nightmare, especially if you're a first-time disassembler and reassembler. This is going to be a nightmare project for you. Alright, I'm just putting it out there. This is one thing that Springfield has the disadvantage on over the Glock, like I've mentioned throughout this video. So anyway, guys, I hope this video helps you out. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to rate. You know, you're about to go through hell. I went through hell to do this video for you, so please give me a thumbs up for that. And also, don't forget to subscribe. So anyway, guys, until next time, get out there, shoot some guns, be safe, and you know what? Most importantly, have some fun. Till next time, guys, I'm Bobby Hughes with Point Firearms. Peace out.